The revolving glass doors of the Horizon Grand Hotel spun slowly, reflecting the evening glow of downtown lights. Inside, marble floors gleamed under chandeliers, and the faint murmur of travelers echoed across the lobby. Laughter, rolling suitcases, and the hum of conversation blended into the perfect picture of luxury. And then silence. It started the moment Danielle Rivers stepped through those doors. A black woman dressed in a simple navy coat, her curls tucked neatly beneath a wool scarf. To most, she looked like just another weary traveler, dragging her overnight bag after a long flight. But to a certain set of eyes trained to judge before they listen, she looked like something else. Out of place. Someone who didn't belong. Behind the polished mahogany front desk stood Gregory Shaw, the night manager. Tall, stiff, his tie knotted like a noose, his jaw set in permanent disdain. He noticed Danielle instantly, and his lips curved into the faintest smirk, the kind people wear when they think they already know your worth. "Excuse me," Danielle said softly, stepping up to the counter. "I have a reservation." Gregory didn't move. His eyes flicked to the bag she carried, worn leather, scuffed at the edges. Then down to her shoes, sensible flats still dusty from the taxi ride. When he finally looked back at her face, his brows raised, skeptical. "A reservation?" His tone dripped disbelief. "Here?" A pause. Guests nearby glanced over, sensing tension ripple through the air. "Yes," Danielle replied, steady though her chest tightened. "Rivers, Danielle Rivers." Gregory tapped the keyboard with exaggerated slowness. His smirk widened. "I don't see your name in the system. Maybe you're at the wrong place. There's a motel 2 blocks down more in your range." The words landed like stones in water, rippling across the marble lobby. A couple at the fireplace turned their heads. 2 young women near the elevator whispered. Danielle felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she held her posture, refusing to shrink. "I booked weeks ago," she said. "Confirmation should be under my name." "Check again." Gregory sighed loudly, as if she were a child asking too many questions. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star establishment. We don't usually have walk-ins like this." His gaze swept her coat again. "Are you sure you can even afford to be here?" The cruelty wasn't even subtle. It was deliberate. A statement made not just to her, but to everyone listening. Behind him, a younger desk clerk shifted uneasily, but said nothing. Another employee, a blonde concierge named Tiffany, leaned closer to whisper something that made Gregory chuckle. Danielle caught only fragments. "Scam, card declined. Shouldn't even try." She clenched her hands against the counter. "I'll show you my confirmation number," she said, pulling out her phone. But before she could finish, Gregory raised a hand. "No need. We don't tolerate fraud attempts here. Security." A guard near the door began to move toward her. The murmurs grew louder now. "What's happening?" A tourist asked. Someone else muttered, "Poor woman. They're humiliating her." Phones tilted upward, recording. In 2025, nothing cool stayed private for long. Danielle's stroke tightened. She wasn't just being denied service. She was being displayed, made into a spectacle for the crowd. A black woman accused of being lesser, unworthy, before she had even spoken a full sentence. "Wait." Her voice cut sharper now. "You haven't even checked my ID. You're making an assumption." Gregory leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough to twist a knife. "I don't need ID to know when someone doesn't belong. People like you come in here all the time, trying to look important, but you can't fake class. Not here." Gasps. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, one shaking her head. Yet no one spoke up. Danielle felt a pulse of rage, but she swallowed it. For years she'd faced words like these in boardrooms, in interviews, in neighborhoods where her success was always questioned. She knew the drill. Don't lash out. Don't give them more to use against you. Still, this humiliation cut deeper. Because this wasn't just any hotel. This was hers. Her company. Her name on the deed hidden in legal paperwork. But tonight, incognito, she had walked in without the armor of status. and Gregory had revealed the truth of who he was when no spotlight shined. Across the lobby, seated quietly in a leather armchair with a half-empty cup of coffee, Elena, a housekeeping supervisor, watched the scene unfold. Her eyes darted from Gregory's sneer to Danielle's trembling but steady frame. Elena's chest tightened. She had seen Gregory belittle guests before, but this was something uglier. Near the corner, unnoticed, another figure stirred. A man in his late 60s, silver hair brushed neatly back, his posture casual but his eyes sharp. Harold Bennett. To the world, he looked like just another tired traveler sipping coffee. But Harold was no ordinary guest. He was the majority owner of the Horizon Group, operating undercover to see how his empire truly treated people when no one knew he was watching. And tonight, he was seeing far more than he'd expected. Danielle's voice trembled now, not from weakness, but from controlled fury. "You are denying me service because of how I look. Because I'm a black woman who doesn't fit your picture of wealth. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I've done to stand here." Gregory chuckled, stepping back theatrically. "Oh, we know enough. And unless you want the police called, I suggest you leave before you embarrass yourself further." Embarrass herself? The laughter from Tiffany rang behind the desk. Guests whispered again. A man muttered, "Unbelievable." Another said quietly, "She should sue." But still, the humiliation hung heavy, because at that moment, Danielle was not a CEO, not a leader, not a name in Forbes. She was a black woman being dismissed, disrespected, stripped of dignity in front of strangers. And Harold's jaw clenched. His spoon tapped slowly against the rim of his cup. He had built Horizon to be a place of inclusion, of excellence. And yet here it was, rotting from the inside out with arrogance and bias. Danielle inhaled sharply, set her phone on the counter, and slid her ID across. "Run it. You'll see the truth." Gregory didn't touch it. Instead, he smirked and gestured to Tiffany. "Go ahead. Humor her. Run it through. Let's see how long this fantasy lasts." The young concierge swiped the card. A green light blinked on the screen. Reservation confirmed. Paid in full. For a split second, Tiffany froze. Then she glanced nervously at Gregory. But Gregory only doubled down. "Must be a mistake in the system," he said coldly. "We'll have IT cleared up. Meanwhile, ma'am, I need you to step aside. You're holding up paying customers." Danielle stared, her heart pounding. Even when proven wrong, he twisted the truth. Even with evidence in front of him, he chose to deny her dignity. And around them, the audience watched, silent witnesses to a cruelty both casual and sharp. Phones still recorded. Murmurs still spread. And in the quiet corner, Harold leaned forward, his decision forming like steel. This wasn't just an incident. This was the beginning of a reckoning. The lobby air grew heavier, as though every word spoken at the front desk carried the weight of centuries. Danielle Rivers stood rooted, her ID card still on the counter, her confirmation glowing green on the monitor. Yet Gregory leaned in with that same crook smirk, sharp, dismissive, meant to slice her down where she stood. Tiffany, the blonde concierge, cleared her throat softly. It says she's prepaid, Gregory, and the system showed VIP tier. But Gregory's glare silenced her in an instant. "The system can be manipulated," he snapped. "Cards can be stolen. Scammers can make fake bookings all the time. Do you really think someone like her is VIP? Someone like her." The words hit Danielle with a force she felt before. Words dressed as policy, as protocol, but dripping with the poison of prejudice. She swallowed hard, because this wasn't the first lobby where she had been doubted. It wasn't the first room where her skin spoke louder than her resume. And like a reflex, her mind pulled her back. She was 22 again, walking into her first interview after college. A tech startup in San Francisco. Danielle had studied harder than anyone she knew, carrying honors in business administration, armed with an MBA that had cost her sleepless nights and student debt that could crush a mountain. She remembered straightening her blazer, repeating her rehearsed answers. determined to prove herself. But when she stepped into the room, 3 men looked up, their eyes flicking not to her resume, but to the braids cascading over her shoulders. "You're Danielle?" one had asked, incredulous. "Oh, we thought." His voice trailed off, but the implication hung there. They asked her about culture fit, more than her qualifications. They pressed her on whether she could handle the pressure of a mostly male team. And at the end, when she left, she already knew she wouldn't be called back, because they hadn't seen her. Not really. They had seen only their idea of her. Danielle blinked, dragging herself back to the present, standing now in a hotel lobby where history repeated itself like a cool joke. Only this time, she wasn't that 22-year-old with trembling hands and borrowed heels. She was the woman who had built an empire. After years of rejection, she had started small consulting from her kitchen table, scraping clients from Craigslist ads and LinkedIn messages. She worked double shifts, coding websites at night, attending investor meetings by day. She learned to stretch $1 into 10, learned which doors would slam in her face and which one she'd have to break down herself. And slowly, brick by brick, she built Rivers Holdings into a name whispered in boardrooms, respected on Wall Street. Her company owned office buildings, tech campuses, and yes, even luxury hotels, including this one. She had signed the final acquisition papers herself, hand steady, smile restrained, when Horizon Grand became part of her portfolio. She had sworn that her hotels would stand for excellence and fairness. Yet here she was, being told she didn't belong in her own lobby. The irony was enough to make her chest ache. Gregory reached across the counter now, plucking her ID from the surface with 2 fingers, holding it like something contaminated. "We'll run this with security. If it's fake, you'll be escorted out immediately." He nodded toward the guard already looming nearby. Danielle's voice sharpened. "That's my government-issued ID, and I've already paid for this room. You have no right to—" But Tiffany cut in, hesitant. "Greg, maybe we should." Gregory silenced her again with a glare. Then, turning back to Danielle, he smirked for the crowd's benefit. "See, here's the thing. People think they can play dress-up, waltz in, and act like they belong. But the Horizon brand has standards. We don't cater to frauds." Fraud. The word echoed through the lobby. Guests stiffened. Phones angled higher. One man near the couches muttered, "Man, this is messed up. She showed ID." A woman whispered, "Why is he treating her like that?" But still, no one stepped forward. The guard shifted closer, his frame blocking the exit behind her. Danielle stood taller, refusing to shrink even as humiliation coiled hot in her stomach. She thought of her grandmother, then the woman who raised her, who scrubbed motel bathrooms for minimum wage and still told Danielle she was destined for more. "They'll call you names," her grandmother had said. "They'll try to make you smaller. But you don't bend, you rise." So Danielle rose. Gregory waved her card dramatically, holding it up for the lobby to see. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we deal with. Fake IDs, fraudulent cards, people trying to sneak into luxury spaces without paying their dues." Laughter tinkled from Tiffany, nervous but complicit. The guard's grip tightened on his radio. Danielle's heart pounded, but her voice came out calm, deliberate. "Run the card. It will clear. And when it does, you'll owe me an apology." Gregory leaned forward until she could smell the faint trace of his cologne, sharp and bitter. "Even if it clears, you'll never belong here. You understand that? You can buy a dress, wave a car, but you can't buy class. And class is what this hotel is built on." Gasps rippled again. A man near the bar shook his head, muttering, "That's racist as hell." Someone else whispered, "Is she recording this?" Yes. Phones were up now. Half the lobby had their cameras aimed at the desk. What Gregory thought was humiliation was being immortalized in pixels. And in the corner, Harold Bennett watched, his jaw tight, the spoon in his coffee clinking once against porcelain. Danielle's mind flickered again, unbidden, to another moment years ago. An investor meeting in New York. She had walked in, portfolio under her arm, projections sharp enough to impress even the harshest critic. But the first question she faced wasn't about her numbers. It was, "Do you have a husband backing you?" She remembered the smirk across the table, the chuckles, the implication that her success needed a man's shadow. That day, she'd walked out without their funding. But within a year, her company had doubled in value anyway. She had learned long ago that the world wouldn't hand her respect. She had to seize it, prove it, live it until no one could deny it. And now, in this lobby, she felt that same fire ignite. "Run." The card. Danielle's voice was steel now. Gregory scoffed. "Fine. Don't say I didn't warn you." He slid the card to Tiffany. She hesitated, glanced at Danielle with something almost like sympathy, then swiped. Green light. Confirmed. Again. A hush fell over the lobby. Tiffany's lips parted, uncertain. It cleared. Gregory's face twitched, but instead of conceding, he chuckled. "Systems glitch. Doesn't matter. We'll still need to verify with the bank. Until then, ma'am, you'll have to leave." The audacity. Even with poof in his hands, he clung to his prejudice like armor. Danielle exhaled slowly, her fists tight at her sides. Around her, the murmurs grew louder now. One guest said plainly, "That's harassment." Another added, "Why don't they just give her the key?" Phones caught every word. Gregory, oblivious or arrogant, raised his chin. "Security, stand by. If this woman refuses to leave, you know what to do." Danielle's pulse thundered in her ears. But she stood her ground. "I'm not leaving. I have every right to be here." And for the first time, Gregory faltered. Because her voice wasn't just strong, it carried the weight of truth, of history, of a woman who had built empires from dust. In the corner, Harold set his cup down. He had seen enough. The air in the Horizon Grand's lobby was no longer polite silence. It was charged, crackling, heavy with the kind of tension that makes even the chandeliers seem to tremble. Phones were raised higher now, red recording lights blinking. Guests had stopped pretending not to notice. Every word, every sneer, every refusal from Gregory was captured from a dozen angles. And still, he leaned over the counter, smug and untouchable. Danielle Rivers, her ID verified, her card cleared, her reservation confirmed, twice stood frozen in a storm of humiliation. For years, she had fought to be respected in boardrooms and contracts. And now, here she was, being treated like a trespasser in the very building she owned. Her chest rose, slow and steady. Enough was enough. "I'm warning you," Danielle said, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "You are humiliating me in front of every guest here. You're crossing a line that you cannot uncross." Gregory smirked wider, his voice pitched just loud enough for the audience of travelers to hear. "Ma'am, the only line being crossed is the one you're trying to sneak past. You're standing here pretending to be something you're not. And if you don't leave, you'll regret it." The crowd rippled with uneasy murmurs. "Man, this is too much," someone whispered. "She showed ID. What else do they want?" Another muttered. A woman near the bar said sharply, "This is discrimination, plain and simple." The words weren't whispers anymore. The witnesses were finding their voices. And that's when Elena stepped forward. Elena had been watching from her station near the lobby entrance, heart pounding harder with each insult thrown Danielle's way. She had worked at the Horizon Grand for nearly 15 years, starting as a room attendant before rising to housekeeping supervisor. She knew Gregory. She knew his temper, his arrogance, his double standards. She had seen him overlook mistakes from others, laugh off lateness, excuse incompetence, so long as the face attached was the right one. But with Danielle, from the moment she walked through the doors, Gregory's venom dripped freely. Elena couldn't take it anymore. She stepped closer to the desk, her voice steady, though her palms sweated. "Mr. Shaw," she said, firmly enough that heads turned. She showed her ID. She paid. "She's confirmed." There's no reason to treat her this way. Gregory turned slowly, his smirk evaporating into a glare. Excuse me? Elena swallowed but stood her ground. I've seen plenty of guests check in. None of them have been put through this. If her name was Jennifer or Catherine, you'd have handed over the key already. This isn't about fraud. It's about bias. Gasps fluttered through the lobby. Guests leaned in. Some applauded softly. Danielle blinked, her throat tightening. Someone had spoken. Someone on the inside had dared to name the truth out loud. Gregory's face flushed crimson. Elena, I suggest you remember who signed your paychecks. But Elena shook her head. I don't care. Right is right. And what you're doing is wrong. The crowd stirred, voices rising now. She's right. Yeah, give the woman her key. This is ridiculous. But Gregory was not a man who backed down. Not when his authority was challenged. His smirk returned, uglier now, teeth clenched behind it. Security, he barked. Escort both of them out. The guard hesitated. The lobby was no longer silent. It was a courtroom, and the jury armed with smartphones was watching. Every second stringed, immortalized. Danielle raised her chin, her voice slicing through the noise. If you lay a hand on me or on her, you'll be making the biggest mistake of your career. Gregory sneered. Is that a threat? No. Danielle's voice rang clear. It's a promise. The tension was electric now. The guests were no longer passive. Some stood from their seats. Others shouted, Stop harassing her. She has every right to be here. Give her the key. A man in a business suit pointed his phone directly at Gregory. Keep talking. The internet's going to love this. Gregory faltered for half a second, but Tiffany leaned close, whispering in his ear. Danielle caught fragments. She'll back down. She can't prove anything. The arrogance returned. Gregory turned back to Danielle, his voice booming. You think these people are on your side? They'll forget you by tomorrow. You'll be a footnote on some TikTok account. But me? I'll still be standing behind this desk, running this hotel. You don't scare me. Danielle's lips parted, and for the first time that night she smiled. It wasn't broad. It wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that carried weight. A smile that said, You have no idea what storm you've just summoned. Her voice cut the air, calm and deadly precise. You want to talk about who runs this hotel, who belongs here. She paused, letting the silence stretch, letting every eye fix on her. I suggest you choose your words carefully, Gregory, because the person you're humiliating is the person who owns this building. The room froze. Every whisper died. Every camera stilled. Elena's breath caught. Tiffany's hand fell from the keyboard. Even the security guard lowered his arm, eyes darting between Gregory and Danielle as though unsure if he had misheard. But Gregory barked out a laugh, sharp and dismissive. Oh, please, you expect us to believe that? You are nobody from God knows where on the horizon, Gran. That's rich. His laugh echoed hollow against the marble, met not with agreement but with silence, with side eyes from the crowd, who weren't laughing anymore. Danielle didn't flinch. She placed her paws flat on the counter, leaned forward, and spoke softly enough that the words sliced sharper than a shout. Check the deed. Look at the signature. The name on those papers is Rivers, Danielle Rivers. And you just humiliated me in my own lobby in front of dozens of witnesses. Gasps erupted. Phones tilted closer. Someone whispered, Oh my God, she's the owner. Gregory's face paled, but pride wouldn't let him collapse. He straightened, voice shaking with forced confidence. This is absurd. A stunt. She's bluffing. But doubt was written in the tremor of his hands, in the beads of sweat forming at his temple. Elena's eyes widened. She looked at Danielle with awe, whispering, You? It's true. Danielle nodded once. It's true. And everything he's done tonight will have consequences. Gregory's desperation grew. He slammed Danielle's ID back onto the counter, shoving it toward her. If you think anyone's going to believe this lewd performance, Think again. People like you." He stopped. He had said too much already, but the slip hung there. "People like you." The crowd erupted. "Unbelievable. Fire him. This is racism." The walls of the Horizon Grand had never heard such chaos. Guests weren't just watching, they were demanding justice. Cameras zoomed in, live streams ticked upward. This wasn't staying in the lobby. This was spilling into the world outside, into headlines and hashtags that would stain Gregory's name forever. And still, Danielle stood steady, her coat draped over her shoulders, her curls catching the golden light of the chandelier. She had endured their sneers, their humiliation, their cruelty, but she was done being small. Her grandmother's voice echoed again, "Don't bend, rise." So she rose higher than ever. "Listen closely, Gregory," she said, her tone calm, measured, final. "You've embarrassed me. You've mocked me. You've tried to strip me of dignity. But the truth is, you've only exposed yourself. And when the truth comes out, it doesn't just whisper, it roars." The crowd erupted into applause. Some shouted, "That's right." Others cheered. Elena wiped tears from her cheeks. And Gregory? For the first time, the smirk cracked. The turning point had arrived. The hush that blanketed the Horizon Grand lobby was deafening. 100 eyes fixed on Danielle, waiting to see if this woman they had mocked, doubted, and recorded would stand tall or falter under Gregory's sneer. She did neither. She simply reached into her bag and drew out a slim black folder. The room leaned in. Danielle opened it with deliberate calm, pulling free a set of glossy documents and a crisp embossed card. She laid them flat across the counter where Gregory had shelved her ID minutes earlier. "This," she said, her voice steady, "is the ownership contract of this hotel. Signed, sealed, and filed with the city. And this," she tapped the gold-trimmed card, "is my master access credential. The one that overrides every staff badge, including yours, Mr. Shaw." Phones shot higher. Guests gasped audibly. Eleanor's eyes went wide. Gregory froze, his lips twitching as his eyes darted over the signature. Danielle Rivers. The same name he had ridiculed, spat at, dismissed as fake. You forged this," he sputtered. Danielle tilted her head, smiling coolly. "Would you like to explain that to the police? Because they're already on their way." As if summoned by her words, the glass doors at the entrance slid open. 2 uniformed officers strode into the lobby, boots clicking against polished marble. Their presence sent a ripple through the crowd. The guests erupted into whispers. She wasn't lying. Oh my God, she really owns the place. Gregory's finished. Gregory straightened quickly, scrambling to regain ground. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. We have an imposter here trying to—" "Actually," Danielle interrupted, her tone like ice, "I'm the one who called them." The officers looked at her, then down at the documents spread across the counter. One leaned in, scanning the embossed seal. His eyebrows lifted. He gave a subtle nod to his partner. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, "we'll back you up. Just say the word." The power dynamic flipped in a single breath. Gregory's smirk withered, replaced by a pale, clammy mask of fear. Tiffany shifted nervously behind the desk, her hands trembling. The security guard who'd once stepped toward Danielle now stepped away from Gregory. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The quiet authority in her words carried farther than any shout. "Effective immediately," she said. "Gregory Shaw, your employment at the Horizon Grand is terminated. You are relieved of all duties, and your access to this property is revoked." Gasps filled the air. Guests clapped. A cheer broke out from the bar. Gregory stammered, face blotched red. You can't fire me on the spot like this." Danielle slid the gold-trimmed MasterCard across the scanner at the side of the desk. A sharp beat rang out, followed by a flat red light. She lifted Gregory's badge, swiped it another beep, this time accompanied by a message on the screen. "Access denied." The lobby erupted. Applause thundered. Laughter rippled through the guests. Foam zoomed in on Gregory's paling face. "You were saying?" Danielle asked smoothly. She turned to Tiffany. "Tiffany Marsh, you encouraged this behavior. You enabled it. You laugh while guests were humiliated. Consider this your last day." Tiffany's mouth dropped open. "But I was just following." Danielle raised a hand. "Excuses don't erase cruelty. You're done here." The crowd clapped again, louder this time. Elena covered her mouth, half shocked, half exhilarated. "And to you," Danielle continued, turning to the security guard, "you moved to put your hands on me when no crime was committed. I have no place for staff who act without judgment or fairness. Leave your badge on the desk and exit." The guard's jaw tightened, but he obeyed. The clang of the badge hitting the counter rang like a gavel strike. Gregory's desperation exploded. He lunged forward, pointing at Danielle. "This is abuse of power. You think just because you own this place you can humiliate me? You're the fraud here, not me." Danielle stepped closer, her voice dropped into a razor's whisper that carried through the silence. "No, Gregory, I don't need to humiliate you. You've done that yourself." The officers stepped in now, hands at Gregory's elbows. He resisted at first, jerking his arm back. "Don't touch me. I've worked here longer than anyone. I built this place." Danielle's reply was instant. "No, people like Elena built this place. People who work hard, who respect others, who carry the weight while you take credit. You only built walls of hate." Applause boomed. Some guests stood, clapping furiously. Others whistled. Elena's eyes shimmered with tears. The officers snapped cuffs around Gregory's wrists. His protest echoed hollow against the rising tide of cheers. "You can't do this," he shouted. "You'll regret this. You hear me? You'll regret." The heavy glass doors slid shut behind him as the officers dragged him into the night. Inside, the air shifted. It was as though the weight of years of arrogance and cruelty had been lifted from the marble floors themselves. Guests surged forward now, some clapping Danielle on the back, others thanking her. About time someone stood up to him. "You handled that with class. Justice served right here." Phone still filmed, but the tone had changed. This wasn't humiliation. This was vindication. Danielle raised her hand slightly, calming the lobby. Her voice softened. "I didn't come here tonight looking to make a scene. I came as a guest, expecting the same respect anyone deserves. What happened tonight wasn't just about me. It was about what too many people face every day, being told they don't belong, being treated as less. That ends here." The applause was deafening now. Danielle turned to Elena, who stood frozen, overwhelmed by the whirlwind. "Elena," Danielle said gently, "step forward." Elena hesitated, then moved to the counter. "You had the courage to speak when no one else did," Danielle continued. "That takes strength. From today forward, you're promoted. You'll oversee the staff as the new lobby operations manager. Report directly to me." Elena gasped, covering her mouth. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say." Danielle smiled warmly, the first genuine smile since she entered the building. "Say you'll help me rebuild this place into what it should have always been, a place of dignity for everyone who walks through these doors." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks as the crowd clapped again, many guests cheering louder than before. Danielle gathered her papers, sliding them neatly back into the black folder. She turned once more to the guests. "Let tonight be proof," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Respect is not optional. Justice is not negotiable. And dignity belongs to all of us." The crowd erupted in cheers, the kind that shakes glassware and rattles chandeliers. Guests clapped, shouted, some even cried. For the first time in years, Danielle felt the weight of old wounds begin to lift, not gone, but lighter, shared by those who had witnessed and believed. Justice wasn't whispered tonight. It had roared, and Gregory Shaw would never forget it. The storm had passed, but the echoes of it lingered. Even after Gregory had been marched out in cuffs, after Tiffany's badge clattered to the marble, after the applause had settled in the quiet conversation, The Horizon Grand lobby felt transformed. Where moments before it had been a stage of humiliation, now it was a theater of vindication. People spoke in hushed tones not out of discomfort, but out of reverence. Guests approached Danielle not to question her, but to thank her. And the staff that remained, those who had hung their heads in silence when cruelty reigned, now stood a little straighter, as if a weight had been lifted from their backs. Danielle stood in the center of it all, calm yet resolute, a figure both ordinary and extraordinary at once. Her scarf still draped over her curls, her coat still plain, her shoes still dusty. And yet everyone who looked at her now saw something else. The rightful owner, the leader, the woman who had turned injustice on its head in real time. By the next morning, news of what had unfolded had already traveled beyond the lobby. Clips from cell phone videos spread across social media. CEO shuts down racist manager live. One caption read. Another. Justice in a hotel lobby. Must watch. But for Danielle, the first order of business wasn't the trending headlines. It was Elena. The young supervisor walked nervously into the office that had once belonged to Gregory. The blinds were open now, letting in light that hadn't touched the room in years. On the desk lay fresh stationery, the misconduct report shredded and dumped in a bin. Danielle gestured toward the chair. Sit. Elena perched on the edge, clutching her hands together. Ma'am, I still don't know if I'm ready for this. Danielle leaned forward, her gaze steady. Elena, you showed more leadership in one moment of courage than Gregory showed in years of power. Leadership isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing up anyway. And last night, when you chose truth over silence, you proved yourself. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. She nodded slowly. I'll do my best. That's all I ask, Danielle said softly. And I'll be here to back you up. For the first time, Elena smiled fully, her shoulders easing as though she could finally breathe. But Danielle's vision went further than a single promotion. Over the following weeks, the Horizon Grand underwent sweeping changes. Every staff member was retrained, not in luxury service alone, but in respect, empathy, and accountability. Danielle insisted on workshops where employees confronted bias head-on, breaking down the subtle prejudices that too often seeped into hospitality. Anonymous reporting systems were introduced. Never again would cruelty hide behind fear of retaliation. Every employee, from the bellhop to the bartenders, had a direct line to corporate oversight. Gregory's network of enablers dissolved quickly. Some resigned before facing scrutiny. Others were replaced with hires Danielle personally interviewed, ensuring character mattered as much as credentials. And the hotel's culture shifted. Guest notice. Review scores rose, not just for clean rooms or fast check-ins, but for something rarer, human dignity. One review captured it perfectly. At Horizon, you don't just feel like a guest, you feel like you matter. The transformation didn't stop in one building. Danielle called a board meeting that month, not in the skyscraper headquarters, but right in the Horizon Grand's newly brightened conference hall. She stood before executives who had long admired profits, but rarely questioned process. Last month, she began, I walked into one of our hotels as an ordinary woman. No title, no status. And what I experienced was something millions face every day: bias, disrespect, cruelty masked as policy. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And if it happens under our roof, then our entire brand is complicit. The room was silent. Executives shifted in their seats. Danielle continued, her voice firm. So this ends now. From today, Horizon Hotels will not just be known for luxury. We will be known for justice. Every branch will undergo reforms. Every manager will be vetted not just for business skill, but for their humanity. Because if we build empires without respect, we build on sand. And I refuse to lead a company that sinks. By the time she finished, even the most skeptical board members were nodding. They knew what the world had seen online. More importantly, they knew she was right. As reform spread, Gregory's downfall made headlines. Footage of his sneer, his words, "People like you don't belong," went viral. What he thought was power became his undoing. Lawsuits followed. His arrogance had left trails of misconduct, victims who now stepped forward with Danielle's support. And while the legal system wound slowly, public judgment was swift. He became a cautionary tale, a symbol of how quickly hate crumbles when truth stands against it. Months later, Danielle stood again in the Horizon Grand lobby. But this time, it wasn't to defend herself. It was to unveil a plaque. It hung near the entrance, polished bronze engraved with words she had chosen herself. Respect is the foundation of hospitality. Without it, walls are just walls. With it, every door opens. Guests pause to read it, some smiling, some nodding thoughtfully. Staff members passed by, shoulders squared, pride in their steps. And in that moment, the Horizon felt like more than a hotel. It felt like a promise. That night, Danielle sat in her corner office, the city skyline glittering outside the window. She thought back to the night of humiliation, the smirks, the whispers, the stain of being told she didn't belong. She thought back further, to the boardrooms where her voice had been dismissed, to the neighborhoods where she'd been questioned for simply existing, to the thousand invisible battles that had shaped her into steel. And then she thought of Elena's trembling but steady voice, of guests clapping, of the way truth had roared through that lobby like a tide that couldn't be stopped. Her chest swelled with quiet certainty. This was the real victory. Not just firing Gregory, not just promoting Elena, but proving visibly, undeniably, that resilience matters, that the truth endures. That respect is not a privilege to be granted, but a right to be upheld. She closed her eyes, whispered to herself the words her grandmother had once told her. A whisper of truth lasts longer than a shout of lies. And she knew those words would guide Horizon forever. So remember this, justice doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it walks in quietly, disguised as an ordinary guest, tested by arrogance, dismissed by prejudice. But when truth finally speaks, it speaks loud enough for the whole room to hear. Danielle's story isn't just about a hotel. It's about every place where people are told they don't belong. It's about every whisper of resilience that refuses to be silenced. Because at the end of the day, walls may be built from marble and chandeliers may shine with crystal, but the real measure of any place, of any company, of any person, is how they treat those the world tries to dismiss. And in that measure, dignity is undefeated.